Thank you for joining us. The federal government has formally handed over the 130 rescued students and teachers of St. Mary's Catholic Church, Papiri, to the Niger State government. The handover ceremony took place at the government house in Minna following a successful rescue operation coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor. Representing the National Security Advisor, the National Coordinator of the National Counter-Terrorism Center, General Adamu Laka, presented the victims to the State Governor, Umar Bago. General Laka disclosed that the rescue was a direct directive from President Bola Tinubu, executed through a joint operation by the DSS, the Army, and other security agencies without suffering any casualties. He emphasized that the government is deploying immediate protective measures in high-risk areas to ensure education does not become a problem.
It is important to narrate that the sustained efforts of the Department of State Services and the General Officer commanding 2 divisions, Nigerian Army, with the guidance of the Chief of Army Staff, have stemmed a significant role in ensuring the success of this operation. I wish to, on this note, reaffirm the commitment of the Office of the National Security Advisor on the security of every Nigerian. We will continue to lead and coordinate measures to protect communities and institutions across the country. Particularly, we are implementing immediate short-term protective measures in high-risk areas, while concurrently working with state governments, traditional and religious leaders to develop lasting community-based security solutions. For education, it must not be a casualty to violence. We will continue to pursue policies and operations to restore confidence, reopen schools safely, and ensure that the rights of every Nigerian child to learn.
Meanwhile, Nigeria has officially designated kidnappers and violent armed groups as terrorists. The announcement was made on Monday by the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, during the end-of-year press briefing in Abuja. He added that the policy would strengthen intelligence sharing and operational coordination across security agencies, allowing for faster and more decisive action. The minister highlighted that improved interagency collaboration has already produced results, noting that in 2025, 2 of the most internationally wanted criminals were captured through coordinated operations. Another year is ending, and here at News Central, it is time to take a critical look at how Nigeria has fared in various sectors of our national life. We kick off this series today, Monday, with security and how 2025 has been a mixed bag for Nigeria's security forces. Our correspondent, Victor Mbadike, reports.
I assure all of you that we will, defeat terrorism in this country.
The president's promise to tackle insecurity continues to face scrutiny as realities on the ground paint a far more complicated picture. From renewed insurgency in the northeast and northwest to the rise of new armed groups like Lakurawa, Nigeria's security landscape remains deeply fragile. Boko Haram and ISWAP still hold remote communities under threat. In the last few weeks alone, hundreds of persons were abducted across Kebbi, Niger, Kwara, and Zamfara states, mostly from schools, which has led to the immediate closure of 47 unity schools.
Babu zaman lafiya a gidana kuma babu zaman lafiya saboda do gidana ma gaba ɗaya rikice.
Other regions are grappling with brutal coordinated attacks by heavily armed criminals. The Yelwata massacre in Benue State is among the recent incidents that sent shockwaves across the country. In the southeast, atrocities involving members of the proscribed IPOB and its Eastern Security Network have continued, along with the group's Monday sit-at-home enforcement.
So many people are agitating. The Southeast, I'm telling you as a traditional ruler, there's somewhere you go now and say anything against Nnamdi Kanu, they will mob you. They will give him a free hand to calm the people down. I don't think he will go as he went before with the agitation.
We are under attack. This is Sambisa.
Despite a major rise in defense spending, many Nigerians continue to question whether the money is reaching where it matters most.
Budgeting for security agencies or security in Nigeria is complicated. It's not just about the funds have been budgeted for, so the agencies will get the releases and procure what they need to tackle security challenges. However, it's important to state that increasing allocation to military or for security reasons for security agencies or expenditure is important. But what the trend in Nigeria shows is that the higher the expenditure goes, the more number of occurrence we have when it comes to insecurity situation, which is unfortunate. However, all the security agencies are doing their best to ensure that they prevent security incidents from occurring, and it is difficult for us to count the ones that they prevented.
Beyond the money, the administration also approved harmonized salary increases for security personnel and expanded police recruitment by 50,000. These steps follow recent rescue successes by security agencies. The president has ordered police withdrawn from VIP escorts to boost frontline policing and approved DSS-trained forest guards to target criminal hideouts. Officials said the country is beginning to reclaim previous lost territory, even as challenges remain.
We have challenges of banditry, we have challenges of insecurity, particularly in our border, cross-border, in our border areas, and some of it has cascaded down to the middle belt, and it's something that the government has been working on. Sometimes with a lot of success, sometimes we have setbacks due to exogenous factors, not due to something that we're doing wrong.
But just as signs of progress emerged, a resurgence of violence has unsettled several regions. Targeted attacks on Christian communities have triggered global reactions, with US President Donald Trump threatening sanctions and warning military actions in Nigeria.
The U.S. can play a constructive role, but it must avoid selective intervention and address the concerns of all Nigerians across all religions to prevent worsening sectarian divisions. 2, it's important to rethink reactive quick-win actions that may seem beneficial to Nigerians, but could have larger and far-reaching negative impacts.
Recently, President Bola Tinubu also changed his service chiefs, a move intended to reset strategy and inject fresh leadership into the nation's security command structure. He has also enlisted the services of former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, appointing him as Minister of Defense, a move he says highlights his determination to confront Nigeria's security challenges head-on.
The enemies we are dealing with are evil forces that don't mean this country well. And they have no respect for human life. And that's why it's important for us to know that if we don't work together, we'll give them the opportunity to continue to perpetrate the evil acts they have been doing. I pledge to give my best in ensuring that Nigeria is secured and safe.
Non-kinetic approaches should not be hinged on negotiating with bandits from a position of weakness. It should be from a position of strength. And lastly, non-kinetic approaches involves creation of jobs, provision of healthcare and education in communities who do not have this.
For now, Nigerians watch and hope that 2026 brings stability as security agencies intensify their operations to restore peace nationwide. In Lagos for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
My colleague whose report you just listened to, Victor Mbadike, joins me here in the studio. Welcome. Sage Ibrahim joins from Minna in Niger State, where he witnessed the reception of the remaining 130 abductees earlier in the day. Also joining in is retired Major General Chris Olukolade for this conversation and a look at Nigeria's security in the year 2025. Gentlemen, I welcome you warmly to the conversation. I will start with you, Sage. What can you tell us about what you witnessed today at the reception for the girls and their teachers? Have they reunited fully with their families?
I would say yes. First of all, the governor of the state received the abducted children, about 130 of them, most of them very young, most of them looking like they're not even over the ages of 7 or 8 years old. But it was a happy moment for the governor. The children were received. The governor, in his words, thanked the president and, of course, described it, as a Christmas gift, not just to the parents, but also to the state government, knowing that this one was going to spend the Yuletide season with families and rather than the hands of the captors. But straight from that, the expectation was that we're going to see these children reunite with their families at the gun house, but that's not the case. Matter of fact, we expect to see, the feeling of happiness, the ecstatic feeling from parents, from guardians, and those who these children initially before they were unfortunately abducted, but that's not the case. It was a straightforward process. The children were handed over to the governor of the state by the representative of the National Security Advisor. Take from that, of course, we saw them take the group photograph that was taken. As a matter of fact, we were not even allowed to even speak with some of these children. They left in the fashion that they came. It was swift, it was up. They came, they were handed over, they were in the bus, and the discharge. From what we understand, children are currently in the custody of the security agencies, where they are expected to undergo health assessment before they are then transported to their families.
Okay, Chris, let me come to you with your overall assessment of what we've seen in 2025. There was spike up and down until we had this recent intervention from the U.S. So I want your assessment prior to the intervention, if you want to describe that, of the U.S. President Donald Trump. Chris, if you can hear me.
Is that for me?
Yes, sir. The question is for you, Chris.
All right. I take it that the news from Niger is one indication of very good progress in terms of addressing our security situation. And if we are reviewing it for the year, it's been so much a challenge to both the government, the various security agencies, and the public at large. We have the seriousness of terrorism and insurgency have continued. Banditry and kidnapping has continued. And the declaration, that we had in the news earlier of government now declaring banditry and kidnapping as terrorism is most welcome and is part of the reactions to that trend, which features so much in 2025. Then there are a series of intercommunal clashes here and there. Found in the East, the issue of IPOB.
Chris, we seem to be having a little bit of challenge with the network from your end, so we'll just pause a bit and come to Victor in the studio and just get an assessment that he can give to us. Putting this report together, what struck you the most as peculiar with our security architecture in the past year, in this 2025?
All right, thank you so much, Felicity. I think there are many of them actually, because it's almost a 10-minute report. At some point, it was even more than 10 minutes because there are so many issues, there's so many incidences, but we had to put them in between that, that time frame just so that we can be more professional. I think the Niger State kidnapping was quite shocking because before now there was what we call a safe school initiative put together by the police. To ensure that our schools are safe, because we've had incidents like this before, it's not new. It's so bad now that when people talk about mass kidnapping in schools, it's
after the Chibok experience, what would expect that the funding would be?
Issues in that regard. And you look at how much, in terms of defense budget being pumped almost every year, it's always increasing, which raises the question as to, do these monies get to the right channels, or do they use it to get the right equipment or weapons or materials to fight these criminals? As a matter of fact, I do understand that the president has, made a proposal of about 5.9 trillion naira in terms of security budgets and
so in comparing both,
last year was just about 4.9, so just about an increase of 0.5.
So it's not reflective of.
We can see it. Again, congratulations. I wouldn't say congratulations because these other school children have been released 130, but that's not enough. The question should be asking basically, the suspect or those who took these children, have they been arrested?
Yeah, that's a key question I want to ask Chris, actually. Chris, if you can hear me, hopefully the network will be better. In recent cases of kidnappings and return of abductees, all we hear and celebrate is their rescue, but there's been no real talk on real reflection as to justice being served against those who are perpetrating this act of kidnapping, because that's something that came up more. And then I want you, in speaking to that, looking for justice, I want you to also speak to the rising level of kidnapping of school children, or the re-emergence of kidnapping of school children, as my colleague had said, despite the humongous amount that's been expended in defense.
Well, the situation we're facing has come to a war situation, and every war is costly. This must be known. And yes, it looks humongous, but when you look at the effect on the ground, it is really desired. And from all indications, both the citizenry and the government knows that there's need to put more resources into combating the situation. I think that's one area I can say the expenditure is somehow justified. But now, considering also the results we are getting, the concern that the prosecution or apprehension of the perpetrators of the crime has not been getting so much attention is definitely of interest. But if you are also following the trend, you will see that recently a lot of trial has been going on, and that's one way to ensure that the process for serving justice to perpetrators of terrorism has increased. You've got a lot of convictions lately, and many cases are also in court. But I think the concern that you mean to say is that there's no record of either fatalities in the course of trying to free the various people who are hearing of their freedom. And that could be a concern. But with time, I believe that we'll get to know how much of these people have been apprehended and the level of justice being served to them. But I know that the process for ensuring that no criminal goes free has not been abandoned, and the various operations in the field indicate wherever the people are able to, wherever they have to get the perpetrators alive, definitely they present them for justice. And wherever they are not apprehended and have to be eliminated, well, the justice has already been served.
All right, Chris.
So the concern, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to have interjected, but that's the much time will permit us for this conversation. Sage, thank you for the update from Niger State. We're glad the girls and their teachers are back. And of course, Victor in the studio, thank you very much for being here as well. Chris, thank you. Chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Taiwo Oyedele, has urged Nigerians to allow lawmakers to complete their investigation into claims of discrepancies in the newly gazetted tax laws. His reaction follows allegations by a member of the House of Representatives, Abdusamad Dasuki from Sokoto State, who alleged that the versions of the tax laws available to the public differ from those passed by the National Assembly. In response to the claims, the House of Representatives has set up a 7-member committee to probe the matter and clarify the situation. Dr. Muda Yusuf is the former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is also the CEO at the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. He joins us to discuss the proposed tax laws and the call by Oyedele to allow the National Assembly investigate discrepancies. Thank you very much for being here. Let's start with clarity. Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Tax has urged Nigerians to allow lawmakers to complete their investigation into claims of discrepancies. How serious do you think these allegations are?
Well, these are very serious allegations because this borders on the credibility and integrity of the lawmaking process. And these things could also create credibility crisis even for the entire tax reform. So it's a very serious thing, and the earlier the investigations are done, at least to reconcile, because it should not take too much time to reconcile what was passed with what was gazetted. I think it's important that the process should be accelerated. But it's very, very important, it's very serious, because this borders on issues of credibility in the legislative process.
Like most curious Nigerians, the government saying that the law as gazetted was not altered. If it is discovered that the law was actually altered and the executive are responsible for gazetting, can such alterations happen without their knowledge?
Well, the lawmaking, first of all, this tax legislation was a very elaborate legislation. We had 4, legislations. We have the tax administration, we have the tax act, we have the revenue service, we have the joint tax board, and so on. So it's quite elaborate. And because of the process of also the lawmaking, we have the House of Rep, we have the Senate, you have the harmonization. So it's very easy for things, to go wrong, either editorially or somehow. But what is important for me is for, the investigation to be very thorough, to know where exactly this came from, whether it was an omission in the process of harmonizing the versions from the House of Rep and the Senate, whether it was a deliberate act for somebody to bypass or circumvent what was passed. This can be discovered. So the earlier that is done, the better. But the matter is that we don't have time, for the purpose of, implementing the tax law. The tax law is supposed to be effective from January.
So if these allegations are proven, I mean, the start date might need to move. Let's talk about the investigation that has been promised by the National Assembly. What powers does the legislature have to reverse or correct an already gazetted law, or to hold those responsible to account, or to, shift the date for implementation when there is concerns about legitimacy and applicability?
No, they have the power to amend the law. They have the power to even revoke any law. The National Assembly has all the legislative powers. So even if it has been enacted, they have the power to revoke whatever law existed. So it is within their power to correct whatever error has been made. And even if after correction, if the president does not agree with them, if they have 2/3 majority, they can even veto the president. So that is the extent of the power they have. So the issue of whether they have the powers or not does not even matter. They have the power to correct whatever mistakes has been done.
Yeah, well, I mean, we will be curious to know how those alterations, if they're real, entered the document. And some analysts are saying that pending that investigation and probe, the government should suspend the application of the law. Do you think the alterations are substantial enough to warrant such a suspension? And is that suspension even feasible?
Well, if there is a decision, because it's an executive decision about implementation, it is for the government, the executive, to implement. If the arguments are compelling enough for the president to suspend implementation, that can be done. But what I think is more practical is to ensure that the contentious provisions are not implemented. Where those that are not contentious, the implementation can commence, where we reconcile those sections that are in contention as to whether, it does not reflect what was passed by the assembly or not. So that would be my own recommendation.
Okay, I mean, you've seen the versions that are in circulation. Can these alleged alterations affect citizens, especially SMEs and self-employed? And also the trust issue, the concerns for businesses. Just talk to us about that.
No, well, the most important implication is that of credibility and trust. Because once as a credibility problem, it could affect the entire process. It could even affect the entire outcome. It could affect even what those positive things that the government wants to achieve. That is the most important implication of this. But as to the generality of the reform itself, of course, there are some very good provisions in the law. There are issues about harmonizing the taxes, which is good for business and good for everybody. There are issues about concessions for small businesses. There are issues of, removing all the archaic tax laws that have been there for ages and so on. So there's a lot of very beneficial provisions in the law. It's not as if the totality of it is contentious. So that is why I believe that the areas that are contentious, we can set aside. The areas that we don't have much problem with, we can go ahead with it.
Okay, what would be your quick advice to small businesses and individuals and citizens generally, pending the outcome of the probe and still having in mind that implementation is set for January?
Well, the advice would be that the sections that are in contention should be suspended as far as implementation is concerned. Okay. And there are quite a number of provisions for small businesses that will be beneficial to them. I think they should immediately begin to enjoy those benefits. And the removal of some of these archaic tax laws, I think that should be effected. The harmonization of all the multiple taxes that exist, that should also be effected. So there are quite a number of positives that we can begin to activate. From 1st January 2026.
I guess at this point is to keep fingers crossed and expect the correct actions to be taken. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Still ahead, the United States recalls its ambassadors to Nigeria and other nations. We'll tell you more when we come back. Thank you for staying with us. The federal government says its recent diplomatic spat with the United States over claims of religious violence has been largely resolved. The issue followed statements by U.S. President Donald Trump, who alleged that Nigerian Christians faced an existential threat and warned of possible military action. Nigerian authorities and independent analysts have rejected the claims, insisting the country's security challenge are not driven by religious persecution, but by a broader criminal and insurgent activity. The government says tensions eased after Nigeria recently hosted a United States congressional delegation, helping to clarify concerns and reset diplomatic engagements between both countries. Nigeria's maritime future is getting a boost as a new generation of seafarers step into the industry. The Nigerian Ship Management Limited has held its cadetship scheme induction program in Lagos, a key initiative aimed at grooming world-class maritime professionals. News Centre's Igbalani Omoniyi has details.
At the heart of Nigeria's shipping sector, a new wave of cadets embarks on their professional journey. The NSML Cadetship Scheme Induction Program is not just a ceremony, but a celebration of excellence, discipline, and vision for a stronger maritime workforce.
More applause, please. We have
the Cadetship Scheme, supported by NLNG and key maritime stakeholders, focuses on rigorous training, exposure, and mentorship aligning with international standards.
This was stopped back in 2014. So for us in NSML, this is us taking over from Nigeria LNG and relaunching the scheme in a manner that allows us, one, to focus on building talent, pipeline for our own activities, but most importantly also training cadets to the best international standards so that they can be internationally qualified seafarers able to contribute to the shipping profession internationally as well.
So we have only about 13 ships. So the expectation is that you put them a maximum of 1 or 2 per ship. There are typically 2 positions. There is the engineering and there is navigation. Both of them is a 3-year program. It involves periods in college, periods at sea. As I highlighted, it's an experience-based profession.
With Nigeria's growing need for local content and skilled manpower in the shipping industry, the NSML program is seen as a model for sustainable development as it signs an agreement with the Nigerian Maritime Academy to provide sea time for cadets after installation.
You are our future. You are our investment. We look up to you. We just don't look up to you. We look up to you to go out to compete. The Philippines today break about 25% of global remittance from seafaring.
For us, it's our own little contribution. As a Nigerian entity, as the largest single employer of seafarers in Nigeria, as the one company that actually trades internationally, this is our own contribution in developing the skill sets in Nigeria. And it's in line with our purpose. Part of our purpose of setting up NSML is to domesticate international skill sets and standards locally so that we can provide Nigerians with that opportunity to participate in an industry that is global.
Some of the cadets share their opinions.
I will say I am one of the luckiest female in this earth to get this kind of opportunity, this opportunity is 1 in a million.
Like, we're obviously wondering after graduation how we get good job opportunities because of how the Nigerian economy is. But now here we were selected luckily by the company, and I thank them for this opportunity. And of course, we'll make sure that everything that is demanded of us, we do it.
As these cadets take their first steps, industry leaders say the focus must now be on retention, upskilling, and creating more sea time opportunities. In Lagos for News Central, Igbalani Omoniyi.
And outside our shores, the trial of Tunisian anti-racism activist Sadia Musbah opened on Monday on charges of money laundering and illicit enrichment. Musbah, the head of the Mneti Anti-Racism Association, has been in prison for more than 1 year and a half. He was arrested in May 2024 and investigated for money laundering. The association has said in a statement put out on Sunday that it was operating legally, rejecting any accusations. And one of our top stories, a senior Russian general has died after a car bomb exploded in Moscow, making it the 3rd such attack on military officials in the capital in a year. The investigative committee said Lieutenant General Fanil Savavo, 56, was injured when an explosive device planted under a vehicle detonated in a residential car park and later died in hospital. Investigators are examining possible involvement of Ukrainian intelligence, which has not commented. And from the U.S., the President, Donald Trump, has recalled the ambassador to Nigeria, Richard Mills, as part of a wider diplomatic reshuffle affecting American missions worldwide. Reports indicate that more than 24 countries are impacted, with Africa the hardest hit. Nigeria is among 15 African nations affected, alongside countries including Egypt, Senegal, Rwanda, and Uganda. Several nations in the Asia-Pacific, Europe, and the Western Hemisphere are also involved. According to State Department officials, affected ambassadors were notified last week that their appointments would end in January, signaling a significant shift in Washington's diplomatic posture. Tonight returns with business, sports, and entertainment. Do stay with us.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
Now, talking business, Afrexim Bank and Harris Energies have signed a $750 million financing agreement to support oil and gas development in Nigeria. The dual tranche senior secured reserve-based lending facility will strengthen Harris Energy's capital structure and fund its field development program. Afrexim Bank served as mandated lead arranger and facility agent. The deal builds on Afrexim Bank's earlier banking of Harris Energy's OML 17 acquisition. Since then, the company has doubled crude output to about 50,000 barrels per day and expanded gas supply to Nigeria's power sector, underscoring the growing role of African capital in energy financing. We also tell you that foreign and domestic investors traded stocks worth 10.542 trillion naira on the Nigerian exchange in the first 11 months of 2025, more than double 4.913 trillion naira recorded a year earlier. Domestic investors accounted for 79.23% of transactions, while foreign investors made up 20.77%. Total trades in November slipped 5.95% month on month to 971.2 billion naira, but actually rose 19.56% year on year. Institutional investors dominated activity, while analysts attribute rising foreign participation to improved confidence following the Central Bank of Nigeria's foreign exchange reforms. We'll bring you markets, of course, stock reports in a bit. To stay with us. Now, we'll tell you that the equities market opened the week on a positive note, even as we see that the all-share index closed at 152,459.07 points, up 0.26%, while market capitalization settled around 97.19 trillion naira. Activity was softer, with 451.48 million shares traded at 33,290 deals valued at about 13 billion naira. We now look at the sectoral performance, even as we see that the banking sector eased slightly by 0.04% with marginal sell pressure. Insurance also dipped 0.54% as counters like ICO saw reduced demand. Oil and gas closed flat, of course, with major players trading largely unchanged. Consumer goods advanced 0.5%, supported by buying interest in stocks like Nigerian breweries. Industrial goods gained 0.91%, driven by renewed demand for cement majors. Overall, we see that the market actually closed modestly higher. That's it on business. I am Lekon Onabanjo.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
Patson Daka scored a dramatic injury time header as Zambia held Mali to a 1-1 draw in their opening Africa Cup of Nations Group A match. Mali dominated and missed the first half penalty through El Bilal Toure before taking the lead just after the hour via Lassine Sinayoko. But Daka's late intervention earned Zambia a point, a result that suits group leaders Morocco. In Group B, South Africa made a winning AFCON start for the first time in 21 years with a 2-1 victory over Angola in Marrakesh. Oswinapolis opened the scoring before Angolan midfielder Show equalized before the break. However, Burnley striker Lau Foster's stunning long-range curler sealed the win for Bafana 11 minutes before full-time. The other Group B match between seven-time champions Egypt and Zimbabwe is currently ongoing with the scoreline at 0-1. Sadly, Egypt are behind in that game. Super Eagles coach Eric Shell says Nigeria are focused on winning their opening Group C match against Tanzania at the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations. Speaking at the press match conference earlier today in Fes, Shell said the first game of any tournament is crucial and stressed the team's desire to start strongly. He added that his attention remains on the competition and his players, not discussions about his future. Shell played down concerns over defensive absences, insisting he trusts the available squad and views defending as a collective task. Let's now cross to Marrakesh in Morocco, where new Central Sports correspondent Udoka Onjoku is on standby to provide update on match day 2 of the AFCON tournament. Many thanks for joining us tonight, Udoka. How are you feeling in Morocco at this point in time? And what is the vibe like in terms of AFCON?
Having a cold night in Morocco, but we're expecting nothing but cold finishes from the Super Eagles of Nigeria, because it is going to be a do or die affair for Nigeria. They need to beat Tanzania to make a statement in African football as giants of Africa. So we're looking forward to that game. I was at their training earlier today, and the players are vibing and they're raring to go. For example, Victor Osimhen has promised us that all three points will go straight to the Super Eagles of Nigeria. And the fans also, in as much as it rained, a couple of journalists and fans came around to watch the Super Eagles train, and it was quite an interesting one. We had 15 minutes with the Super Eagles to watch them train, and the rest was behind closed doors, which they trained for about an hour plus. So the boys are ready to go. This was their final training ahead of that game against Tanzania. And tomorrow, of course, we are live here. We'll bring you the feel of the fans. We'll feel the pulse of the fans, how they feel ahead of that game against Nigeria.
Any injury worries? Any player that was absent from training possibly? And do you have any idea of what the starting 11 could be like for tomorrow's game?
Well, no injuries recorded, and it was beautiful to see that there was no injury from the team ahead of tomorrow's game. And of course, nobody knows what the starting lineup will be, but we know that 2 people will start in tomorrow's game: Victor Osimhen and Nwabali. Those are the 2 people that would likely start. And of course, the captain, Wilfred Ndidi, who said he's not under any pressure leading the Super Eagles team. So those are the 3 players I'm sure will play, but no other person knows the tactics or plans or lineup of Eric Shell. He's a man who is filled with a lot of surprises. And just so you know, Tanzania, they've not beaten Nigeria before, they've not made it out of the group stage before, but they said they are not scared of the Super Eagles, and they're going to they'll come all guns blazing against the Super Eagles of Nigeria. So it's a beautiful game to look forward to, and we'll surely be there. But the fans will also want to say something about that game. We'll bring them to you tomorrow.
All right then, Udoka, thank you so much for the update. Do stay safe, and all the best to you and the Super Eagles tomorrow. All right then, that's all on Sports News tonight. Entertainment is next with Kate.
Tonight in the world of entertainment, South African pop star Tyler has hit a major career milestone as her hit single Chanel records its highest streaming day yet on Spotify, marking a new peak for the song months after its release. According to reports, the track saw a sharp spike in global streams, placing it among the most played songs on Spotify's global chart for the day. The surge highlights the song's strong staying power. Chanel, which blends smooth pop melodies with Afrobeat influence, has steadily grown in popularity since its release. The new streaming peak further confirms Tyler's expanding global reach and growing fan base. Hollywood actor Bruce Willis will leave an extraordinary scientific legacy after his passing, as his family has announced plans to donate his brain for research into frontotemporal dementia, the neurodegenerative disease that forced him into retirement. In a heartfelt decision, Willis' wife Emma Hemming Willis and his loved ones say the donation could help scientists better understand how FTD affects the brain and advance research towards treatment for the condition. The die-hard Pulp Fiction and The Sixth Sense star was diagnosed with FTD after first revealing struggles with aphasia in language disorder and has been out of the spotlight since 2022. And that's it on Entertainment News for tonight. My name is Kate Adeogun.
And before we go, here's a quick recap of our top stories. Niger State receives remaining rescued 130 abductees as federal government designates kidnappers and bandits as terrorists. Presidency confirms diplomatic row between Nigeria and United States over genocide allegation is resolved. We also brought you news that Russian general has been killed in a car bomb as investigators point to Ukraine. As always, we appreciate your feedback and eyewitness report. Please share them using the number showing now. You can follow us on all platforms at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Abo TV and on YouTube. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a good night rest.